series. Tom and I are going to look at the most memorable games in the Bengals-Eagles history. And we're going to save the last one as our top one, but just a couple notable ones. And we always do the memorabilia. I'm going to do it early, Tom. So the very first matchup that the Eagles and the Bengals had, the Bengals won big, 37-14. And Ken Anderson, that was 1971, 37-14. Ken Anderson got his first appearance in some mop-up work later in that game. But Bengals win big. This is the actual game day program from that game at Riverfront Stadium, 1971, the very first matchup between the Eagles and the Bengals. So another game, actually, Tom, I'm sorry, another game we'll talk about is the 1975 game. Bengals won 31-0, a shutout. And if anybody ever watched the movie Invincible, early in that game, the Eagles game they were showing at Veterans Stadium, the crowd was booing and yelling and hollering. The Bengals were on the field kicking the Eagles' butts that game in 1975, a 31-0 shutout. So, Tom, I'll shut up. You can either comment on those or you can keep going with some other ones.
The Eagles were they were the bottom of the NFL at that point. They had, nothing pleases Philly fans more than being able to boo and hate their own teams. And they had plenty of reason to do that. But, the Bengals were very good that year. There were some that said they were the second or third best team in all of the league that year. And they just went in and steamrolled a team that probably didn't want to be there, was playing for a coach that was, about to be let go. And it just, Kenny Anderson was winning his second passing championship. He was all pro, best quarterback in the league that year. And, they just couldn't be stopped.
Yep. Good. And, so we did the 71 game, the first matchup, the 75 game, the blowout, 31-0 blowout shutout. Let's go to, it's a memorable game, not because we won or lost. It was because in 2008, there was a tie. If you remember that game, I think Donovan McNabb was quarterbacking.
I do remember that game. A couple things stick out about that game. That was the Ryan Fitzpatrick year.
Yep.
A lot of people forget, Fitzy was our quarterback one year and did the best he could really with what he had. Carson had torn his elbow up and his enthusiasm was waning by that point. And, Fitzy came in, did everything he could. It really kind of helped him get the experience he needed to have the career he had later on. And he's mentioned that several times. This was all pre-Beard. But, he played okay. He did what he could that year. He ended up getting us a couple of wins. But the most memorable part of that game was neither coach seemed to really want to win it. Nobody would go for it on 4th and short toward the end of the game. Nobody could do anything of note in overtime. And when the game ended, Donovan McNabb, the Eagles quarterback and star, who, all pros, high draft pick, Super Bowl player, he didn't know the game ended in a tie after overtime. He just thought they'd keep playing until somebody won, like a NHL playoff game. And, he was running around the field saying, what, where's everybody going? What?
Yep. I remember that. Actually rewatched that game recently, believe it or not.
Why'd you do that?
I know, painful. But let's talk about the final two on our list. And it was kind of close between 2 and 1. But 2, I put that 1988 game in Philadelphia out. 2 really, really good teams playing that day. And the Bengals pulled out that victory on the road in 1988. I think it was early in the season, maybe week 2 or 3 against the Eagles, Tom. That was a great game.
Week 2 against the Eagles. The Eagles were gangrene. Buddy Ryan, they were going full bore with that great talented defense they had. Reggie White, Jerome Brown, and Sam Weich went in with a brilliant game plan. Bruce Coslett adjusted it at the right times during the games. The offensive line had just an incredible game. That was one of the games where Joe Walter really stepped up. And before he got hurt later, game 16 of that year, a lot of people don't know this. The internal tracking had Joe Walter at the end of that season as the Bengals' best lineman. But anyway, that was the game he really established himself. He dominated the whole line, kept Boomer clean for the most part. They were able to run and do the things they needed to do to win in a tough place to play against an excellent team.
Yeah, that was a really big win against a really good team. But the number one matchup, most memorable matchup Tom and I selected was this game right here. We have a short clip to play on this 1994 matchup. So, Jamie, if you could play that clip from 1994.
1 second, you boys. Sorry.
No problem.
Looking into the end zone, throwing over the middle. One by Pickett's 5-yard line. Oh, goes to the goal line and goes in. Touchdown, Cincinnati. He's got the pitch back now. Cuts inside. Howard Wade goes to the goal. And Tony McGee contributed with his first NFL touchdown. Drops to throw. He's going to be rushed. He's going to throw. It is caught for a touchdown. Oh, McGee. No buts about it. This game bore the markings of another wild finish. Facing 4th down and 16 late in the game, Blake's extra effort kept the drive alive. The rock-solid Doug Pelfrey was then summoned to preserve the Bengal season. Johnson checks with Pelfrey. He's ready. Teams lined up and set the ball. A snap plays down and booted. It is through the uprights and going. With the kickoff merely a formality before overtime, Cincinnati suddenly found itself on the positive end of the year's most bizarre play. Johnson's kick is down the center of the field. And it'll be fielded by one of the uprights. Fumble the football. The Bengals have it. All right, we'll see exactly. They do have it. They have the ball on the 35-yard line. Then, in a fitting end to their roller coaster season, it all came down to one play and 1 second. Johnson will hold. Teams line up and set the ball. A snap plays down and moving. High it up, deep it up, and oh my gosh!
So, Tom, the 1994, the 33-30 Christmas Eve miracle. Doug Pelfrey kicks 2 field goals within 3 seconds, a 54-yarder with 1 second left in the game to win it. That was Tim Crumry's last game as a Cincinnati Bengal. They honored him earlier in the game. They carried him off the field on their shoulders at the end of that game. I remember being there Christmas Eve. It was cold. The season was already over with. Mm-hmm. But what an absolute crazy game.
No, it was. And the Bengals fought back. That game was a sellout. And, 64,000 people jammed into Riverfront Stadium. And the Bengals fell behind big early. And as you could tell when he hit the game-winning field goal, it was Christmas Eve. And the place was nearly empty at the end for that miraculous last 3 seconds. Probably the most exciting 3 seconds that you can imagine given the circumstance. But, a lot of that was Jeff Blake. As you saw, the athleticism, that was really the beginning of shaking Blake and the excitement that he gave us for a couple of years with the athleticism and that fantastic deep ball that he had. But things just started clicking in the second half. And I've never seen an ending like that. But I can remember with my buddies, because we stayed, they when the Eagles gave up that kick, they actually had trouble getting 11 guys onto the field. They were just so stunned and in such shock that the Bengals even had a chance to win at that point. They were screaming and waving for guys to get on the field, and guys just kind of staggered onto the field. And when Pelfrey kicked that final boot.
What I remember most being in that game, I remember being cold. It was Christmas Eve and all that stuff. But I remember they had the ball 1st and goal, or inside the 4 or 5 yard line. But I remember it was 3rd and goal with 7 seconds left, and they decided to kick the field goal at that point versus trying one more play and shot into the end zone. And I remember being mad at, one more play, you got time, you can still kick the field. So I was mad because they didn't go for it on 3rd down. They went in and kicked the field goal with 7 seconds left. They kicked the field goal. They kick off with 7-3. There was 1 second left when they recovered that onside kick. And
Jimmy, I just want to tell you, I absolutely agree with you. If there's 7 seconds left and you're inside the 10-yard line and you've got an incredibly talented hot quarterback take a quick shot at the end zone.
Yep.
But, in that case, it worked out.
It did. It did. Absolutely did. It was a wild game. I just remember the cool scene of, Tim Crumrye's great career with Cincinnati ended that day, and they carried him literally all the way to the locker room, as far as I could see into the tunnel, on their shoulders. The respect that man had with all that entire roster was fun to see, and it was a memorable moment for me being there.